Okay. Great. Why Nikon is lying to you. Hey, let's first start off by stating a fact. Lenses that Nikon does not make anymore, that exist out there by the thousands on eBay, you see, Nikon don't make any money off those anymore. They are not interested in telling you or informing you about awesome old lenses that they don't make anymore, that on the Nikon website say, discontinued. Actually, Nikon calls them archived lenses. Might be the case that many of those old lenses, which might cost you $200 or $300, highly outperform this $2,200 lens. That's just one example of many. $200 versus $2,200. Yeah, I think there's a huge difference there. Ever so slightly. Let's talk about something else too. Something that you and most people don't understand. I have a firm grasp on, and you're going to learn this, and you'll never make that mistake again. I don't watch NASCAR stuff, by the way. Perfect analogy, however. You have these expert drivers out there. Okay, they are really good at driving. Most of them, they know how an engine works, what does this part does this and that does that. But they have a pit crew, people that keep on top of everything with computers and how to make that engine purr so that the driver only has to think about driving. Now, when a expert, let's just say the person is an expert photographer, and they're an ambassador, Nikon ambassador or a Sony ambassador, which of course is certainly, by that we mean a salesman. Yeah, the Nikon ambassadors are actually real professional photographers, meaning their work actually looks good. Yeah, I diverged off topic there a little bit. See, these people are drivers. Okay? Now, even they don't know, just like the people in NASCAR, they've got two totally different things. I mean, you've got everybody's out there heralding, Jeff Gordon, who's the only person I know of that, drives a car. They're, cheering him and wearing a shirt. Nobody wears the shirt of the guy in the pit crew that knows what engine to tune, at what torque ratio, and all the other little stuff that actually matters, because the person would never be able to win the race without the pit crew. Never going to happen. Just never going to happen. All these people out there, they say, well, I'm driving so-and-so, and, just, that doesn't mean anything. When these people, not only are they paid to talk about and take pictures of the new lens, like the new lens, and it's just a perfect example, the latest lens that Nikon came out with is absolutely horrible. If you're a black and white shooter, you could not even think of picking a more horrible lens than the 105 f1.4, and that's just one example of many, okay? One example. Nikon is interested in appealing to as many people as possible. What I will tell you that Nikon and Sony, well, I don't deal with Sony stuff, and Sony doesn't even make their own lenses. They outsource that to somebody else the same way they do with their camera repairs. They won't tell you Canon either, as they want to appeal to as many people as possible. And they won't tell you, hey, if you're a black and white shooter, when you convert this to black and white, the images are going to suck. You see this really expensive lens over here? Yeah, it sucks for micro contrast when you do a conversion. Nikon isn't never going to tell you that. Never. Ever going to tell you that. People have to realize one thing, and this is true of Fuji, Canon, Nikon, Zeiss, everybody. All lens design is a trade-off. Now, I was looking at some of the Flickr pages for the 180mm 2.8, the Voigtlander 58mm, and the Nikkor 60mm. These are lenses that I've praised endlessly, and everybody that buys them, they're just orgasmically happy, oh my god, I've never had a lens like this, I've been shooting for 20 years, it's made so well, the pictures are incredible. Obviously the picture counts. The composition, of course, counts. Everything counts. But if you want to take the perfect shot, and you combine that with the perfect lens, then you have perfection. You could have the perfect compositional black and white shot. Okay, composition, everything's awesome. But if the lens renders it this way, then it ain't so perfect. Not only that, it's kind of a little bit far from perfect. Someone takes the perfect black and white shot, and they've got the perfect tool. It's the same way with the driver and the pit crew. The pit crew know about torque ratios, what's the best engine, how to set the car up right. The driver is the guy driving, okay? You're the photographer. You're not even supposed to be worried about this stuff. I can tell you for 100 absolute certainty that all these expert photographers, and I used to see them in photography school, I've never met one of them, never, and I've met more than a few of them, that really, really knew that damn much about lenses. They just don't. They don't. What they have, they know how to use really well. People love the pictures, they make money, you know, they're sponsored, they travel the world, everybody thinks that everything they speak is pure gold. But ultimately, if someone like me were to talk with them, and we were to tape that interview, it would be easily proven, hey, they're master photographers, their work speaks for itself. This is not, we're not talking about that. We're talking about that, you don't take the driver and assume that he's the same guy as the person in the pit crew. And you can certainly be a person in the pit crew and a driver. There's not an either or here. But when you're as knowledgeable as the person in the pit crew and you can make the right choice and the right equipment and not listen to these Nikon ambassadors or to the company itself, and you know what the hell's like, I'm a black and white shooter, I need to choose a lens that's perfect for black and white, for example, or I'm a portrait shooter, I want to choose the best value for the money. Just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's the best. This is a hardcore, undeniable fact. And Nikon and Canon, they have no interest in lenses that they don't make anymore that are sold on eBay, or flea markets or whatnot. Some of those lenses are incredible. Anyway, looking at some of these pictures recently on some of the highly recommended lenses that everybody's really happy of my recommendations on. Some of the best pictures I've ever seen. You are being lied to by Nikon and the rest of these people. These old lenses, or these new lenses that are based on old designs, are being used on the most advanced Nikon cameras or Canon cameras. And they are producing the best effing pictures I have ever seen. I mean, just the best effing pictures I've ever seen. This notion of like a high megapixel camera out-resolving an old lens or an old lens, it is absolute 100% bullshit. Anybody that tells you that, you need to slap them or tell them to piss off. Because this is absolute BS. Some of the most fantastic images that I've ever seen, and I don't mean molested in Photoshop and Lightroom 20 minutes later after it's stuck on the computer. These are coming off of old lenses or old lens designs on very modern, advanced Nikon or Canon cameras. The Voigtlander 58 is an old lens design. Some of these old Nikkor 100mm f2.8 E series and some of these others, all lens design is a trade-off. Some of you people are going to have to eventually realize you can either understand it or you can't. That, like, say, let's take Cindy Crawford, for example. Some of those beautiful women on the world, they have a beauty. She's got a big old mole on her face, right? There is no perfect lens. Now, there are a few that are almost perfect across the board. Some of the most perfect lenses, not only are they insanely sharp, they have great bandwidth, phase, and gain. They're just almost perfect across the board, like the Zeiss 35mm f2 Distagon, the Nikkor 60mm f2.8 D series, the Voigtlander 58mm f1.4 Noctune, the Nikkor 180mm f2.8. There's a list of them, okay? I mean, I can go down a list. It's not a very long list, that's for sure. These are near perfect. It's like they're a 10, a 10, a 10, a 10. But there's, in general, on 90% of the lenses that are out there, you're going to have to make a choice. You can make a lens that is super, super sharp. Like this lens, it's not super, super sharp, but it's pretty damn sharp. It's not any sharper than the f2 is. But it's got some serious issues, and that's all some people look at. It's like, well, is it sharp? Is it sharp? Yeah, it's pretty sharp. The only problem is it's got swirly bokeh, it's got cat's eye bokeh, it's got a lot of negatives. You'll be like, oh my god, that depth of field. All lens design is a trade-off. You people who start taking all these awesome pictures using old lenses or new lenses based on old lens designs on these advanced cameras, you will bend the will. You will make these gigantic trees of Nikon and Canon bend like 100-year-old gigantic tree in a hurricane. You will bend their will if you refuse to buy these crap lenses that are super sharp. They have no chromatic aberration. People don't realize is that you've been chirping. People have been chirping now for well over a decade. It's like, we want the sharpest lenses and we want no chromatic aberration. It's like, fine. To achieve that goal, you will have to sacrifice all the other things that make a lens just awesome. It's like, we can give you the sharpest lens. We'll stick all these elements in here. It'll correct out all the chromatic aberration. But it'll be very sharp. It will have no chromatic, but everything else will be sacrificed. It's kind of like a movie I once saw where like human brains were transferred into a computer, and these people achieved like immortality inside of a computer, and so now they didn't have to worry about disease and sickness and mortality anymore, but then they realized they couldn't do anything that was fun, like eat and do other things. Everything in lens design is exactly like that. It's a trade-off. And if you people refuse to buy these overpriced shit plastic lenses that have like a bazillion elements in them, it's like, well, they're really sharp and they're fast, and yeah, but they suck. Now, photography is an art form. When we say suck, obviously that's relative. If you like the look of something like this, I mean, some people thought, when Pablo Picasso, or impressionistic painting, I mean, impressionism is certainly not sharp. Some of the most beautiful pictures I've ever seen are insanely blurry. They got tons of grain. It's an art form. I get that, okay? I get that. But there's something that absolutely translates into a supreme lens that is very sharp, but is not insanely sharp. It has some chromatic aberration, but oh my God, the color saturation, the perceived depth, I mean, it will just make your tongue beat your brains out. It's just that awesome. It is silk, sex, and sugar. It is just tougher than woodpecker lips. It is just awesome. Like the Voigtlander, like the 60mm 2.8D. You will bend the will of Nikon. I've started seeing on Flickr all of these images that are just like, holy shit, these are awesome. This awesome. When you take the perfect photograph and you match it with the perfect lens, man, you'll end up with a picture that'll just knock your socks off. You start to make these stupid-ass camera manufacturers realize that simplicity is divinity, If you need a super fast, high element 70 to 200 millimeter, that obviously has usually 20 plus elements in it. That's not what you choose. Everything in lens design is a trade-off. If you need that speed and you need that zoom, you're going to trade off color saturation, in which case you don't care. Every lens has its own purpose. There is no perfect lens. The lens that is perfect for art is not the lens that is perfect for speed and photojournalism and sports and action. And usually the two do not meet. Almost never do they meet. And you need to realize that. You can't say, what's the perfect lens? This is why I always say, well, what's the best lens? Best lens for what? What budget for what use? An awesome prime is never going to replace an awesome zoom. An awesome zoom is never going to replace an awesome prime, vice versa. Each one has its place. Each one has its place. Getting back to the pit crew at NASA, you need to stop believing these people that are, these ambassadors for these companies. It's like, oh, here's the latest, greatest lens. Well, we recently saw the guy actually heavily edited the hell out of the shots, and I had hundreds of witnesses. And that is disingenuous, because then you're showing something that's heavily molested in Lightroom, and is completely unrepresentative of what the lens actually outputs. And that is no bueno. That's no good. Stuff like that goes on all the time. But that was a really perfect example of where we caught Nikon. It wasn't Nikon specifically, it was a Nikon ambassador. But if you're a Nikon ambassador, you are working for Nikon. No ifs, ands, or buts. May not be your full-time job, but you are working for them. You are on their main web page. And there ain't many of them. There are very few of them. Don't misrepresent a lens by heavily editing the piss out of it and then getting people to see an image and think that that's what the lens does. Obviously, you don't have that photographer skills. That's not what the hell we're talking about. We're saying that that lens ain't ever making that image. If you're standing in the same place, same time, took the same shot as that photographer, you'd be like, I took the exact, that which would never happen. It's like, I took the same picture with the same camera, the same lens, same shutter speed, and my shot looks, yeah, well, mine's really heavily edited in Photoshop. Oh, you never told us that. That's what we thought this lens did. No, that's what I did in Photoshop. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you that. Oh, yeah, that's a really important point to tell me before I bought this $2,200 lens. These people are lying to you, okay? It's no big deal. They're in it for the money. They're proud of making good products. I'm not saying that they're not, but they're in it to make a buck. And every company's in it to make a buck, and I'm not like crapping on capitalism here. I'm certainly not crapping on capitalism. They have to make a buck to keep innovating to make new stuff. But if you people start demanding the awesome lenses, you will bend their will. I mean, you will take that gigantic tree like a hurricane, you will uproot it, and you will bend them. You will say, we will not take these hamburger processing lenses anymore. We want stuff that makes these incredible images that are really color rich and deep and make black and white images just pop like a son of a beach. And, lenses like the Voigtlander 58, 1.4, Nikkor 60mm 2.8D, 180mm 2.8D Nikkor. Oh my God, there's a list of them. 35mm f2D AF Nikkor. Nikon is not that stupid. Nikon still makes some of these old screw drive lenses for a reason, because they are that damn good. And the real hardcore pros out there that have used a lot of lenses but may not be making YouTube videos, which are many of them, they buy these lenses, and they buy them for a reason. They're not fast. They're not buying them because they're fast. They're buying them because they are that effing awesome. And that's what I'm talking about. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Catch you later.